Good morning, boys and girls. I'm Eleanor Hawkins, and welcome to Telestory Time. This morning I brought along my book again. Yes, it's the book entitled Reading Can Be Fun. And boys and girls, I want each of you to know that reading can really be fun. And inside it says, if you can read, you have the key that opens the door to the world of books. Come in. And when we turn the pages, then we see some of our very best book friends. Yes, up here is the illustration of Little Women. Over here we have Lassie. And down here we have Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. Yes, boys and girls, we want all of you to know that reading can be fun. And now it's time for me to read to you. And our very first story this morning, boys and girls, is the story of Bartholomew the Beaver. Once there was a silly little, lazy little beaver. His name was Bartholomew. He lived with Mother Beaver and Daddy Beaver in their own beaver lodge. And all he wanted to do was to play all day long. "Watch me," cried Mother Bee when Bartholomew was old enough to work like a beaver. And she showed him how to swim with his flat tail in the cold, cold river, and under it too. Bartholomew shivered and shook his furry head. "No," he said, smiling sweetly, "it's much more fun to play." "Watch me," cried Mother Bee, for she could not believe her ears. And she showed Bartholomew how to find nice juicy shoots and plants to eat, and how to sharpen his beautiful long front teeth on tree trunks. Bartholomew yawned behind his paw, and he looked very bored. Then he tried to stand on his head. "It's much more fun to play," he said. Now Daddy Bee felt his blood pressure rising. "Bartholomew," he cried sternly, "no more nonsense. Now you watch me." Bartholomew watched him. Daddy showed his small son how to slap the water with his queer flat tail. "To warn the family that strangers are coming," he explained. And then he showed him how to store food for the winter in their home. When Daddy wasn't looking, Bartholomew started a game of tag your tail with yourself. And he went around and around and around. "Timber," cried Daddy Bee, as he showed his son how to gnaw down trees very fast and make them fall just where he wanted them to fall. He also showed him how to stack logs and slap on mud, build big dams, and in this way make pools and lakes out of the rivers. But Bartholomew by this time was playing shoot the chutes on the river bank and in the water by himself. Daddy Bee looked at Mother Bee and she shook her head. "Just leave him alone," she said. "To think our son is the only silly little, lazy little beaver in the whole green forest. Of course we are ashamed of him, but maybe he'll turn out all right someday." So Daddy Bee and Mother Bee dived down to their front door, which was under the water, and went on working like beavers. As for Bartholomew, well, he just scratched his back and went out into the green forest to see what he could see. Now pretty soon he sat down to rest by Hotel Chipmunk. All at once, plop, something hit him on his nose, hard. And then, thump, thump, some things hit him on his ear, harder. And then, scribbly, scrabbly, plunk, 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 down came a whole shower of hard things on him. Ouch! "Get out of my front doorway, you lazy little silly little beaver," cried Mrs. Chattanooga Chipmunk, who was up in a tree, spilling nuts down on him. "Why don't you get your teeth into things like everyone else and work?" Nuts to you, muttered Bartholomew to himself. No one had ever told him that was a very rude thing to say. And then he paddled clumsily down the forest path to see what he could see. Now soon he came to Water Lily Pool, where Professor Bullfrog was giving his students their croaking lessons. All except one small bullfrog, who had a sore throat and was excused. He was gargling pool water about 8 hops away. Croak-a, 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 sang all the bullfrogs. At that moment they saw Bartholomew. Quick as a hop, they all dived kerchunk right into Water Lily Pool. Well, am I scary looking? Is my fur ruffled? Are my whiskers on end, or what? Wondered Bartholomew, staring down into the water. Well, they're no fun. Guess I'll go shoot the chutes with Oscar Otter's boys. Now when he reached the otters, they were all busy catching fish. Shh, you silly little lazy little beaver, you, whispered Mother Otter. Can't you see that this is our busy day? Run along now, run along, I say. My whiskers, said Bartholomew to himself, and he scratched his left ear. Doesn't anybody play? All right then, I'll flop right here and take a nice nap. So without looking, he flopped right on a plant of prickly nettles. Ouch, ouch. Oh, but they hurt. Only Mother can pull out these stickers, cried Bartholomew, and he turned around to go home. And there, smiling a great big smile at him, was Wolfgang the Wolf. He wanted some beaver pie for dinner that night. Plunk! In one blink, Bartholomew dived into the water. Slap went his tail. Oh, what a nice noise! Down, down, down he went. Mr. Wolf was left behind. Oh, how happy Bartholomew felt. He was a beaver and he could swim like a fish. Oh, that was exciting. He came up on the opposite shore and bit into a branch. Just then Mother Bee and Daddy Bee came down the path. Bartholomew smiled at them. After this, I'm going to work like a beaver too, he told them. And you know, he did. And it was fun. And that, boys and girls, is the story of Bartholomew the Beaver. And now stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment to show you books from the shelves of your library. Boys and girls, our bookshelf this morning is made up of craft books, things that you can make all by yourself. And here is the first book. It's entitled The Beginner Book of Things to Make. And inside, it shows us all sorts of illustrations with steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how to do the project. This one is how to grow a jungle. And it tells you to take a sweet potato and to put 4 toothpicks in it and then put it in a glass of water. And then you can watch your jungle grow. Yes, there are all sorts of fun things to do in this book. And this book is entitled The Beginner Book of Things to Make. Our next book is Fun to Make Nature Crafts. And inside we have wonderful illustrations. This tells us how to make a hanging carrot basket. And here we cut the carrot, and it shows us how to make the strings and make a basket that hangs. All the way through we have lots of fun things to do. This is little Annie acorn, and you take an acorn and make it for little Annie's head, and then you build her body. Oh, these are fun things to do. Here's how to make a totem pole. All the way through, we have fun things to do in this Fun to Make Nature's Crafts. Our next book is entitled just that, Things to Make. And inside, you can see paper playthings. And here it shows us how to make a paper plate plaque. Ooh, that looks like a scary face, doesn't it? And here are cookie patterns that we can cut out and then use them for cookie cutters. All the way through, we have some fun things to do, things to make. And then this book can be very valuable right now, something your family can do to make bird feeders and shelters you can make. And inside, it gives us the exact directions and the exact measurements on making bird feeders and bird houses. And this is an important time to make bird feeders because the fall and winter are coming, and it's time for us to remember to feed the birds. Bird feeders and shelters you can make. And then this is an interesting book. Look what you can make with egg cartons. And we do have a lot of egg cartons that we have to throw away. And here in this book, it gives us illustrations about how to make things. Here is a colossal castle, and it's all made from egg crates. Yes, this book is entitled, Look What You Can Make from Egg Cartons. And last of all, I'd like to show you this book, Paper Airplanes, Models to Build and Fly. And inside, as you can see, it tells us exactly how to make these paper airplanes with patterns. Yes, this could be a fun book. Paper Airplanes, Models to Build and Fly. Boys and girls, you can check out any of these books from any of the libraries in the Craven-Pamlico Carteret Regional Library System. Be sure and use your library card this next week and check out some very good books. And now stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment with another story just for you. Now, boys and girls, get ready to listen to the old favorite story of Peter Rabbit. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Now, they lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out." And then Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. Now first he ate some lettuce, and then he ate some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. Then, feeling rather sick, he went about trying to see if he could find some parsley. But around the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out some young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief, stop!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on all four legs and went faster, so that he might have gotten away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by one of the large buttons on his jacket. Oh, it was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him, and rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful place to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each one. Presently, Peter Mr. McGregor tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lip, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. And then Peter began to cry. Then he tried to figure out his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled, and presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A large cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very still. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back toward the tool shed, and suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Now Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Now Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big tree. Oh, he was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole, and he shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime, but you know Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for their supper. And that, boys and girls, is the story of Peter Rabbit. And now stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a moment. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to read you the story of Henny Penny. One day, Henny Penny was pecking at some corn in the barnyard when crack, something fell on her head. It was only an acorn, but she didn't know that. She thought the sky was falling. Goodness gracious me, she said as she ran out of the barnyard. I must go and tell the king. She went along and she went along until she met Cocky Locky. Well, where are you going, Henny Penny? Asked Cocky Locky. Oh, I'm going to tell the king the sky is falling. Well, may I come with you? Asked Cocky Locky. Oh, certainly, said Henny Penny. So they went along, and they went along until they met Ducky Lucky. Where are you going? Asked Ducky Lucky. Oh, we're going to tell the king the sky is falling. Well, may I come with you? Asked Ducky Lucky. Certainly, said Henny Penny and Cocky Locky. So they went along, and they went along until they met Goosey Lucy. Where are you going? Asked Goosey Lucy. Oh, we're going to tell the king the sky is falling. May I come with you? Asked Goosey Lucy. Oh, certainly, said Henny Penny, Ducky Lucky, and Cocky Locky. So they went along, and they went along till they met Turkey Lurkey. Where are you going? Asked Turkey Lurkey. Oh, we're going to tell the king that the sky is falling. Well, may I come with you? Asked Turkey Lurkey. Oh, certainly, said Henny Penny, Cocky Locky, Ducky Lucky, and Goosey Lucy. So they went along, and they went along until they met Foxy Woxy. Where are you going? He asked. Oh, we're going to tell the king that the sky is falling. But this is not the way to the king, said Foxy Woxy. I know the right way. Shall I show you? Oh, please do, said Henny Penny, Cocky Locky, Ducky Lucky, Goosey Lucy, and Turkey Lurkey. So Foxy Woxy went with them to tell the king that the sky was falling. They went along and they went along till they came to a small dark hole. Now this was the door of Foxy Woxy's cave, but Foxy Woxy said never a word about that. Instead he said, this is the short way to the king's palace, and soon we'll get there if you will just follow me. So Foxy Woxy went into his cave and waited for the others to follow. Turkey Lurkey went in first, but he hadn't gone far when whack, off came his head. Foxy Woxy had snapped it off. The same thing happened to Goosey Lucy and Ducky Lucky. Then Cocky Locky went down into the cave. Now maybe Foxy Woxy was tired, or maybe the cave was so crowded by this time that he couldn't move very fast. Now whatever it was, he missed Cocky Locky when he leaped at him, and Cocky Locky had time to call out to Henny Penny. She turned tail and ran as fast as she could to her home, so she never did get to the palace to tell the king that the sky was falling, which of course was just as well. And that, boys and girls, is the story of Henny Penny. And most of you have heard that many times, I'm sure. I brought along a little bookmark here that has a little verse on it, and this is what it says. Books go everywhere. I took a book wherever I went. I wouldn't go without one. I felt so bare if a book wasn't there. I floated on my book like a barge. A book could make any place grow large. And so we close our book of stories. Until next Saturday morning, this is Eleanor Hawkins saying bye-bye for Telestory Time.